just we're a little bit related.
Yeah.
So much appreciated. So we'll be finishing now.
Sacha.
When Sacha finishes, just remind people about the food orders being due in.
That's all right. I see you, the screen.
Okay, hello everybody. Okay, hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Welcome back. We're now ready for our next speaker. So I have great pleasure in introducing Sacha Christie. She's become a notable figure within the contemporary abductee and experiencer scene. In this presentation, Sacha is going to give us an overview of her experiences, views of UFO abductions in general, and other issues she feels are relevant to this topic. So please welcome Sacha.
Afternoon, everybody. Right, well, when Robert asked me to do this talk, I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. I thought it would be like the usual affair, a sold audience. So I was surprised to hear people saying, ASSAP, are you mad? The skeptics. My reply was, thank God for that. A couple of weeks ago, I was asked to talk to the Times for a feature they were running about this conference, kind of skeptics versus believers thing. And I had to explain to them that I'm not actually a believer in anything, because I've as yet failed to find a satisfactory explanation for the things I have witnessed. So I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not going to sell you a new philosophy about how you should live your life. There's no message from the aliens, and I'm not going to demonstrate my donkey channeling abilities. I'm just going to ask you to listen. That's it. I don't want to convince you of anything. What I want to do is gain the interest of some of you. And I know that isn't a given, especially considering the terminology and word associations, the language I've been given to work with. It's inadequate. And we're here to debate whether the subject of UFOs is dead or not. Are they real or are they not? Well, there's no doubt in my mind that there are definitely unknown structures crafted in our skies. And I know this because I've seen them, I've photographed them, so they were not a product of an overactive imagination, lens flare or any other emotional issue, technological glitch or any other reason that we usually give them. Who's flying them? No idea. And what goes on behind actually these sightings is just a whirlwind of nonsense and speculation that is pointless even debating right now. And I don't really even know what... is someone shouting my name? Sorry. Very someone I don't even know what UFO means anyway. It used to mean unidentified flying object, but now it's a complete umbrella term for everything and everything being insanity gone mental. I've spoken to a lot of people, I've read a lot of books, I've read articles, documents and things online from Ethelreal, channeling Brian from the Hollow of the Earth, scholarly articles, and still I found no answers and I found no peace. And if I was looking for a philosophy or a coping mechanism, I would have found one by now, but as yet I'm wholly unsatisfied and a little bit lost, to be honest. So, this is what happened. A group of us decided to go on a completely impromptu visit to a cheap off-season holiday cottage in Wales in 1997. It was myself, my son, my partner Steve, his uncle, his sister and her son. It was February, it was dark, it was wet, and we made our own entertainment for the day. And in the evening, around 7:30, I was upstairs in a bedroom, everyone else was downstairs. My partner at the time, Steve, was calling me for me to come downstairs, and his voice was urgent. The children were being noisy, and my initial thought was that I was needed as a referee, so when I got downstairs, I saw that he was stood in the kitchen doorway and he was telling me to come and look at something. I couldn't actually see anything at all at first, and the cloud was so low and it just went on for miles like an upside down snowy landscape. It's pitch black, but it's not raining. Eventually saw a flicker of light in the cloud, and I told him that I thought it was lightning, and he said, "No way, look." So now I'd pinpointed the right bit of sky, I kept watching, and sure enough, it came on again and again, and the light had a definite uniform pattern. Obviously fascinated, we stood and watched it. At some point we brought out John and Dania and the children, and we all stood watching it. And it was moving away from us to the right, and then it stopped, and it started to move towards us, but it came towards us in like this zigzag. It didn't just zoom over or anything. It was really slow, it was really deliberate. And after a while, no idea how long, it came to be over the field in front of us, in front of the house. We were all kind of stood in a line, when it was so, say, at the back of the room, that far away. It was over there, but it kind of, without us even realising, drifted to be right over the top of us. And it had a specific way of moving, because if it had like fluid manoeuvrability, it would have just moved to be over towards us, but it actually zigzagged towards us, and then it manoeuvred itself into be in there above the field, and then towards us again. There was no curving moment. Every move it made had an angle. So there it was, hovering silently above us, absolutely brilliant white light with a bluish tinge to it, and there were also lines of light coming out from the central white light, which were alternating, which gave it the impression that it was spinning. But I think that was just the rate of rotation from whatever the light source was. And nobody was in the least bit disturbed by what was going on. None of us were reacting to the situation at all. We might as well have been watching a firework display, literally. Then there was a strobe light from behind our position, and I looked and said quite calmly, "Oh look, there's another one." Everyone looked, and there was a kind of general, "Oh yeah." And then we turned and we all looked back to the light in the clouds above our heads, completely forgetting about the second one. And this one was a sphere, and if I stretch my arms out to about this circumference, this is about the size of it. That had manoeuvred silently into place, and it had come down and under some trees without any of us noticing, hearing anything, and it pulsed a slow grey-white light about every other second and emitted a grey mist. By this point the children were starting to get scared, and my son had told me that he'd seen a hand come through the hedge and touch his foot. He said he thought it was the hedge, but then he saw it was a hand. And he might as well have said, "Mum, I need to go to the toilet," because all I did was say to Steve, "The kids are getting scared," to which he replied, "Come on, we'll take him back inside." Okay, so that's that. Point is, the thought of looking and the thought of reassuring him never occurred to me, or anyone. If he said there was a monster under his bed, the light would have been on, and I'd have proven to him that there was no monster. As it was, we all just puddled off back into the house together, and as soon as we walked in, it was like nothing had happened. Children started playing again. John and Daniel went to watch TV, and Steve just stood there washing the dishes. And I couldn't believe what they were doing, and that was the only thing that impacted me, how weird they were being. And they were just, I have no idea why, but I said something along the lines of, "Sod this, I'm off back outside," which I probably did, without anybody, trying to stop me or thinking that it was a bad idea. So I'm walking up the garden, kind of laughing incredulously to myself at this situation, and stood right underneath this big white light that was in the clouds. And as I looked at it, it looked like a jellyfish rippling through the different densities and thicknesses in the clouds. And in fact, the clouds were so low, I couldn't figure out why they were, and assumed it was a memory distortion over time. Until that wasn't, I went back in April. I went back for the first time in 14 years, and realised that we were on top of a mountain, and we were 3 miles as the crow flies, as the car drives, from Berwyn. We were literally on Berwyn Mountain, and I had no idea of the Berwyn Mountain incident back in 1997. I didn't really care about UFOs, I didn't care about anything apart from just doing what I was doing. That was my life, and everything changed that night. And whatever went on in Berwyn, I have no idea, but this village is called Glencerrig, and the house is called Cairnfern, and it's on the edge of the forest, and it's literally the last house in the street. So as I'm standing in the garden, I'm looking up and wondering what's next. I heard something run from my right across the bare patch of dirt behind me, and it bumped into my back. And I was already running. I just started running, and I was running by the time I realised that I was running, and I couldn't see. I'd gone completely blind in fear. And it was like being hit by a truck, literally. Now, that was when I realised what was going on. I don't know what it was. I don't know what touched me, and I'm not even going to debate that, because I didn't see anything, so I can't say for sure. I could make something up, I could convince myself of anything if I wanted to, but the simple fact is, I don't know what it was, but it scared the hell out of me, and I went absolutely superluminal back into that house. And Steve, When I told him what had happened, he calmly looked at me, looked at the clock on the cooker and said, well, you haven't been out there long, so you haven't had any missing time, like it was the most natural thing in the world to say. By that time I was completely freaked out, I was shaking, I was a mess. I tried not to show it because I didn't want to scare the children any more than they had been. So we packed them off to bed. I remember that I made Steve come to the toilet with me, and I wouldn't be on my own for a second, and literally when I got on the bed I would not put my feet on the floor because I was absolutely terrified of what, I have no idea. We all went to sleep and that was that. And I know it all sounds very McPherson tape and it's hard even for me to take in, but we all remember the same thing in the same way, and it affected all of us very badly. The very next day we were all at each other's throats and it was a complete nightmare. Steve and I decided to sneak off early in the next morning and we booked a taxi to Wrexham and a coach back to Leeds. And not long after that we split up and I didn't see him again. And I tried to find them. Eventually I found them on Facebook, so you know, I got in touch with them, and I spoke to Steve for 3 hours and he remembered pretty much the same as me, but he remembered the date and where we were, all the things that I'd forgotten after that moment of panic. I tried to forget it, block it out, drink it out, drug it out, smoke it out, but it rattled around in my head every single day, and it still does to this day. And I asked Steve, how did it leave you feeling? He said, exposed to the bone, raw, and I've never been the same since. Danny said the same. I'd asked John, but he's no longer with us, because he took an overdose 3 years ago and killed himself because he couldn't bear to live with him. He could not reconcile it within himself. But then I got to thinking, but it was only me that went outside, it was only me that had that fright, so why is everybody so scared? Why are all of us in that place of trauma? I've suffered a lot since then. These things don't exist, but they blatantly do, because we all saw that together. We were all awake and we were not on drugs or drunk or any of those throwaway ridiculous suggestions. It was not sleep paralysis, it was not a group hallucination, it was not weather phenomena, it was not a craft of any usual variety that we can easily identify. It was not DMT flushing our systems at 3 AM in the morning, it was not a hypnagogic nor hypnopompic state. They were there and they behaved and we behaved exactly as I've described. Now I could say, yeah, I've been abducted by aliens. I must have been, because all of this happened and the popular literature tells me that this is what happens. And I did actually believe that for a while. When I first came out of the closet I knew less than nothing and decided I believed in aliens and tried to convince myself that it was all very lovely, but it wasn't. It didn't sit right, and so I searched for some meaning and all I found was nothing. Nothing made me feel better, nothing had any real logic to it. I'd read articles by people I thought knew about these things, so I read their explanations. Sleep paralysis, okay, can't be for all the reasons I've already stated. Although I have suffered from sleep paralysis, but it was when I was a substance abuser, trying to destroy myself and close my head down and calm the panic inside me, which was an epic fail, by the way. But that's where I ended up in my fear and confusion. I was a suicidal mess, and the only place I had to turn to was the internet, and that is a very cold comfort. It's, for the most part, absolute gibberish. None of the terminology actually fits. Alien abduction, I don't even know what it even means. And the fact that the whole subject is riddled with meme steam makes it pointless even getting involved in most instances. It clouds everything so that people like you guys assume that I think and believe what they all do. And what I want is answers. I don't want you to believe me, I don't want you to disbelieve me, I'm not really bothered, it makes no difference to my existence. And I'm not the only person in this position. I want answers, and I don't care what they are, as long as they are the right answers. I've had people scornfully scoff at me, you were fooled by the military, you idiot. Well, excuse me. So I did see it then. You know, it was a silent, hovering military craft. Okay, fine, so they have them then. So why are they lying then? Why are they making people believe otherwise? Why are they letting people like me rot in our own minds over seeing one and having a massive paradigm shift that might not even be valid? Also, why are they buzzing civilians in this manner? And what of the sphere on the ground under the trees? Why did it land? If people were controlling it or in it, what were they doing? And why did they do that to us? What would be their reasoning? And then why to every single answer or speculation you could imagine or come up with? What was the purpose of such a spectacular charade that no one would believe in anyway? None of it makes sense. So it's aliens taking genetic material. Why? How much do they need? Etc, etc, etc. All of it. All of the answers lead to nowhere. And most of the explanations are only vaguely understood. The mechanism of hypnagogic states and the alleged DMT factor, all vaguely understood, only slightly probable in maybe some cases, but definitely not an explanation for anything I've seen. Hallucinations, they come with an illness or an external, element or biological malfunction, but that is not possible for 6 people. So all I know is what I saw and how it left me feeling and how it's had a steady and gradual detrimental effect on my whole life. Homelessness, substance abuse, money issues, wanting to die. I didn't ask for that, and I certainly would not make this up. For what reason? For what benefit? I'm not in it for the money. I have never taken a penny for anything I've done, and I'm asking for nothing other than someone to help me understand what it was we saw and why the hell would anyone listen to us without dismissing us all out of hand as cranks. I don't know what happened to us, I really don't, but I know something must have to have crippled us in all such a way. I've had other sightings, I've photographed them. I wake up with strange memories and bruises, which I could not have done to myself, and psychosomatics is not a good enough explanation. And I know some of you will wholeheartedly reject every word I've said. I know that with some I may have had your attention up to a point and then lost it because I've said something in a certain way with crappy language. And I'm trying to get a point over in a subject to a mindset that are very particular about how language is used, and I have no language to bridge this credibility gap. It's hard to explain what has occurred because I know that the language I have to use is limited. If I'm trying to break away from the standard narratives which do not apply in any way to the reality of our experience. But I hope that can make it understood that there are a lot of people of the same mindset as me. We are unconvinced as you are with the explanations so readily available on both sides of the fence. I've learned how to look at things properly because I've paid attention to how skeptics look at things. I've had a few penny dropping moments, and let's put it that way, but even after following the skeptic's narrative, logic, reasoning and conclusions, nothing gave me the slightest satisfaction. So when it comes to the question of unknown structured craft in our airspace, I'd say there's no debate, because I've seen them. I've photographed them. There's one. This is just a few. All I've done is shift the colours so you can see them. Pull them out a little bit because it's a bit fuzzy. So this is... As to where they come from, I've got no idea. But I want to know whatever the answer is. This skeptics versus believers debate is a completely false dichotomy from where I'm standing. I've listened to both skeptics and believers and I've concluded, to me, you're all on a level because none of you know the answers. No one can explain what I saw with sound logic and reasoning. Every point made still leads to why. So here I am, representing a group of people who would like to speak to people like you, but we understand why you won't debate. There's no language that we can use here where we know definitively what each person means. We all have preconceived ideas and we all judge each other. Often any exchange is adversarial and closed off before anyone understands what it is we're trying to say. And I can only go so far in the UFO community. It's based mostly on meaning and philosophy, or plain old nuts and bolts, and that's it. So now I've hooked up with ICAR, I've hooked up with psychologists, and I'm now wanting to understand biological and mind sciences because I need to go somewhere with this. With ICAR, we are doing studies of abductees, commonalities, personality traits, even down to eye colour, hair colour, everything, blood types. Because we need to know what's going on, whether you believe us or not. You know, some will, some won't. But I know that I've seen these things. I mean, I took that from my bedroom window. You know, I don't know what that is, but I saw it and I took loads of pictures of it. That's the clearest one. It shows a sphere and another object, and there were 2 objects moving about together. Now, if anyone can explain that to me, I'll be quite happy, because it's not a normal aircraft. So ICAR is the international community of abduction research, and that is where I've ended up, because they're the only persons who are actually actively trying to crunch some data to find out what it is we're going through. If it's in the mind, we want to know, because it does have a really detrimental effect on our entire lives and our families. I mean, I've had so many issues with my family actually trying to keep it together, you know. My parents don't understand me, they have rejected me, they've brought me back, you know, it's hard to take when somebody, you know, starts talking things like this, and the kind of blanket assumption is that you are mad. You know, and I don't think I'm mad. I think I'm lost, and I think I've struggled, and I know that there's a lot of people in the same position as me, and all I'm doing now is talking to them and trying to help them as best as I can. But it's really difficult because it's a really cold climate in ufology, and you know, as to the topic of whether it's dead or not, it's never going to be dead. It's like saying, is religion ever going to end? You know, we're all going to stop talking about that. It's never going to happen. You know, there's something going on, we all know it, otherwise I'd be talking to empty chairs right now. So I'll conclude my speech there, because I know that we've all been pushed for time, and I'd just like to think that maybe sometime in the future when you're talking to somebody like me, you might actually listen to what they're trying to say, rather than assuming that you know what they're going to say, and that's all we want. Thank you. Any questions? No? Hi.
Would you say that the events led to your family's difficulties before everything was all right? Then
Well, things are never always alright in families, but this definitely changed everything for us, yeah.
would you call it a trauma?
Yes.
Have you heard of post-traumatic stress?
Yes, that's what I would say that I've suffered from, yeah, because of that fear factor moment, just that one moment when I heard that running up behind me and I felt something bump into my back. Now, it could have been anything, but it doesn't matter. That was the trauma. That was the moment where the whole situation of what had gone on, what was going on, impacted me. And from that point on, even my mum once, she was really angry with me. She said, "You've never been the same since you went to Wales." You know, like, I could do anything about that, but I would definitely say that a lot of the people that I talk to are suffering from either acute post-traumatic stress disorder or complex, which is, you know, the compounding
I've got
of,
it myself.
yeah. So yeah, definitely. And this is what we need help with, because we can't really come up with any kind of recovery or, you know, we can't go to a psychologist and say, you know, all this has happened, you know, where do we go from there? They've got no frame of reference to apply anything to us, and with half of it being unknown, because we do not have full recollection, then how can you unravel something that you can't go back to?
Right. I've got no answers for you.
Yeah.
It's just an interest.
No one else.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. Hi. There's a strong possibility, of course, that you'll never ever get any answers.
Mhm.
Have you thought about making your peace with that and like? You
I
know,
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there are no answers. I've said this often enough. You know, but there's no acceptance either. You know, and that's this is it. You know, we're completely marginalised to the point of non-existence. You know, if there was acceptance, I've made my peace. I'll never know what happened to us. I'll never know who was in that. There's no way that you can go back in time and actually observe and then interact with the, you know, the situation. There's just no way of finding out what happened. But to be left in a place where you've got nowhere to go to anybody, but then, you know, when we know these things are there, I mean, my camera's not like, I can't Photoshop, I've not made that up, that's outside my house, you know? So these are the things that I want, you know, people to understand, is that we don't want this. I don't want this. I mean, my life changed 100%. I'm not even the same person that I was, you know, and I have hard times with my family. I have a hard time managing my children sometimes because of the anxiety that I feel over it and the lack of acceptance, and that is the hardest one to take. It's even harder to take than actually the incident itself, because you just feel so completely out in the cold and you don't know who to talk to, and you don't talk to anybody because you think you're just going to get full vitriol or scorn and the rest of it. You know what it's like out there. Yeah. So no, I know I'll never have any answers to that, but I'm hoping one day maybe we can find some answers for other people. And as lady, did you want to ask a
I was
question?
just wondering if about the children, how were they affected?
I don't know about Joseph, because he lives in Spain now, he's one of the children. My son, he has the same issues as me, but then he's been brought up by me, suffering from the same thing. He's heard me talking about it, so, you know, that in itself would have affected him even if he hadn't have been with us. So it's hard to pull that one apart, but it's definitely affected him. Affected all of us. I mean, John's dead now, you know, he killed himself because of this.
Have you undergone hypnotic regression?
No. No. I don't think I can at the moment. My youngest son is 4, and it's taken me a long time to kind of gain any mental stability, emotional stability, and I don't think now would be a great time for that anyway. You know, because I have to maintain a family. I have to keep, you know, I have to keep it together. Maybe one day. Anyone else?
Over here. I missed a lot of what you had to say, sorry, something that's outside. I
Okay.
don't really know how many encounters you've had. When you was on about you feel fear from it, was it necessarily like during the encounters or afterwards?
It's always after. It's always after. It's never at the time. Apart from, well, one incident was particularly frightening as it started, but it's always afterwards when you know, you think, well, what was that? Because most of the time you think it must have been a dream, because any of the other strange experiences that I've had have been, you know, I've been in bed at the start of them, so I can't really.
Have you felt less fearful as your experience has developed though?
In a sense, yeah, I wasn't scared looking out the window, seeing that and photographing that. I was intrigued, you know. I think really the fear is being a residue of that incident, you know. But I really can't, and when I look back at things, I think, well, they weren't really that scary, so I can't, you know, it's always an after thing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I've had a couple of, let's say, experiences myself where I felt a bit of fear in certain circumstances, but what's the answer going to be? I can't remember now, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's what I was going to say, that definitely perception does alter of like life around you when you see these things, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Sacha.
Yeah.
I just wondered your opinion, like, how would you feel if there was, for example, scientific evidence that actually challenged some of the commonly held beliefs about what these experiences are, for example, sleep paralysis or false memories? So the reverse as an evidence challenging those commonly held views. How would you feel about that?
I'd be really glad. If we could get some definition for everything, we could talk to each other. Sleep paralysis, what's that? Dreams, what are they? You know, all of the explanations given to us are not fully explained themselves, so how can that be satisfactory? It's not to me. If somebody can lay it out on the line and say, this is sleep paralysis and this was definitely that because of all these markers, and that's standard, I'd say, great, okay, I'm going to rule that out then. You know?
Kind of rolling out something.
I'd be happy. I want answers. I don't care if I don't have a narrative that I want to fit anything to. I just want to know, you know, what's going on, and that's it. I haven't got a philosophy. I've got no ideology over it. All I know is that I've seen this. I've gone through this, that, and the other. And what the hell is it? I have no idea. And so all answers are welcome because I've got no story
No,
to
you know,
fit.
it feels like you're standing nowhere, doesn't it? Like,
It is. It's. I would say it's been in a place of no-thingness. There's just no. There's nothing. There's no answers. And you know, I have found some peace in a sense, but it's not. I'm not happy, you know, with any of the explanations I've been given from anyone, and I have talked to people from all sciences, academia, everywhere, and I just think, well, no one can tell me what this is. You know, this is not too dissimilar to the thing that we saw in Wales that was on the floor. You know, so how can we be told it's military when there's no evidence for that either? There's just no evidence for anything. So how can we prove either way? You know. Anyone else? Is that it? Right.
I wanted to ask, ignoring ufology and abduction phenomena.
Yeah.
So when you've talked to other people who've had experiences, to what degree is your experience prevalent among others? Ignoring other abduction things, let's say it's something else.
What? Sorry.
So your experience, how prevalent is it with other people who've experienced similar things to you?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Everything that people go through, they're all so completely different. It's very difficult to make any comparisons because everybody's story is completely different. Everyone's seeing something completely different. You know, it's like I've got a friend who sees things coming through, you know, like lights, all kinds of things like that. Now, that gets umbrellaed under alien abduction, but that's got nothing to do with aliens, you know. There's a lot of, so it's hard to find a common narrative. And mine, apart from maybe one experience, which I can't even say was definitely an experience, is seeing one of the little blue goblin type things in my bedroom in 1991. And then 5 years later, Witness Treva brings out communion. So when I saw that, well, I didn't see that until 2005, because after 1997 I refused to watch anything to do with UFOs and ET. So when I saw that, and I thought, well, how can that be a dream? How could I have dreamt that? You know, well, so what was that? What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not going to say, you know, if I was a UFO believer, I would say, well, obviously I'm being abducted, and I'm the same as Whitley Strieber, and I've got all that, and then gather all his stuff to me because of that one thing. And that's what a lot of people do. But I'm not doing that. I'm just saying this is what I've gone through, and that is all I can speak of, because I can't talk about anybody else's experiences with any real relevance, you know, unless it's comparing something to one of my experiences, which I can't really do that, because they're all different, which is why it's so confusing. You would think it would be standard, you know, but no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have a 10-minute break now. Can I just remind everyone, you've just about that time to put your food orders in for the evening meal if you're going to be joining us for the social tonight, and we hope you will. So you can do that at the registration desk, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Very well. Very well.
Sorry, can I squeeze through? Sorry, yeah. I don't know. It's done. Probably knock it down here, well, it wouldn't take much. Yeah, same on everybody else. Yeah.